Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, this is Lisa Conley at Child Care Resources, and I hope you all are enjoying some beautiful sunshine like we have today here in Seattle. So glad that folks could join us today to talk about quality assurance with Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. And as many of you know, we often have this webinar right before we have our annual survey time, and so we're doing that. We're going to cover that as well as today we're also going to be talking about the quality self-assessment process too, which has been a part of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn for the last few years, but we haven't been as great about reminding you to get those self-assessments in. So we thought it'd be good to have a little bit of a refresher course today about what those self-assessments are, how to do them, and when to turn those into us. Then we'll talk about the survey process for 2016 and the monthly attendance report. So feel free, if you already know about monthly attendance reports and you don't need to hear about that, you can sign off at any time, and we'll also be we are recording this webinar, so we will post it onto YouTube in case you have to dash off or miss some piece of it. It will be there available for you to view at your leisure. Again, a reminder that if you have any questions or comments, feel free to go ahead and type those in the question box, and I'll be moderating and checking those questions periodically too. But feel free, please ask questions. And then also, if you have any advice to other facilitators or other Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups about doing these pieces, feel free to type that in as well too. And I just want to give a shout out to the photographs. I'm trying to find something kind of light and entertaining for this webinar because some of this information can seem a little bit dry. So to Christopher Buffelli, who is a West Seattleite, he's kind of in my neighborhood, but he created, he's a photographer who created some really cool books and photographs based on these little miniature people and food. So hopefully that will keep you looking at something fun and entertaining as well. So let's get started. We'll talk about just doing quality assurance in general. Really, the point of why we want to do quality assurance with Kaleidoscope Play and Learn is just to make sure that we are all providing consistent quality across the board and offering our families a great experience in the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups, and that by doing these quality assurance practices that we're maintaining fidelity to the model as well as fidelity and allegiance to each other too, of making sure that we're all participating in these quality activities and checking ourselves against the guidelines and making sure that we are being consistent in offering our groups in alignment with the guidelines. And then also it really, because of the fidelity piece, that really does help us to maintain our promising practice designation. So it's really important that all of the groups that are part of the Kaleidoscope network participate in these too. And last but certainly not least, we really do want to know that our programs are doing what we intend them to do, and that we're reaching the goals that we set out for ourselves and the outcomes that we want for families that are participating, so that we can improve the program as well as we can show funders and policymakers too that this is a worthwhile program. So why we do it? So the quality self-assessment tool is part of that process that we have all agreed to do, and this is where each organization does a quality self-assessment for each facilitator that is facilitating groups for them, and using a standardized form that is really based on the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn guidelines. And let me pull it up here for you. We can take a look at it. So hopefully you're seeing that on your screens now. Oops, sorry. Um, So the quality self-assessment, again, it's a form to be filled out for each facilitator that is part of your organization. That's a lead facilitator or the designated facilitator for the group. You don't have to fill it out for volunteers or other folks that might be supporting your group, unless they are like the lone or solo facilitator for that group. But if you only need to have one designated facilitator that's completed the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn 101, and these are the folks that you would complete this quality self-assessment for. And this should be done on an annual basis. We leave it up to your organization on how you how you do this, or who is involved in it. You could have somebody from outside your organization visit and observe a group and fill this out. You could have somebody within your organization, like a supervisor or a program manager or another facilitator, do an observation and fill this form out as well too. So we leave some of that up to you because we know each organization has some special circumstances. And then for those of you that are close at hand to us in Seattle, we'd also be happy to come out and help you complete this as well too. But I think it's great if you can do it internally, and we want you to use it as a learning process, um, to remind yourselves about what the guidelines are and to think about what components you want to improve upon, and then which ones you feel like you're doing really well. So the self-assessment form, pretty simple to fill out, just the top information with date, your organization name, the name of the facilitator, and then the name or names of the people that are completing the form. And then as you go down, you'll see that there are a couple of sections here. The first is essential activities, embedded practices, and if you refer to the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn guidelines, you'll find this section in your guidelines with a little bit more detail. So if you want to review and refresh with those before you do that, that's great. And then as you're doing the observation or having a conversation following that with the facilitator, really to fill out the form is to look at each of these items and think about, yes, this group, this facilitator is doing this, or is it something that this group, this facilitator is working towards? And let me get a pointer thing here for you. So either yes or you're working towards it. And then in the next box, if it's a yes, give some examples of what you're doing to fulfill this essential activity. And I would say, I don't think it's necessary for you to complete every single box here if it's a yes, but it'd be great for us to know as we're collecting this information to see a few examples of what's working really well in your group, because it's helping us here at Child Care Resources also to learn about what's working in your groups, and how we can, and it gives us some information about how we can support you to do that, and then also how we can pass along that kind of information to other folks that are running groups, and give some real life examples of ways that groups are meeting these essential activities. Then if you check working towards, I would love to have you fill out the box for any of the working towards areas. So if this is an area that you aren't quite there yet, so maybe it's about offering developmentally appropriate activities for child participants. If you're working towards making it a little bit more developmentally appropriate, your activities and your selections of those, then give us a few examples of or explain how and why this is not being fully met. Maybe it's a matter of you don't have the right materials yet, or you're still learning about what would be developmentally appropriate, or learning more about the children in your group. So put that there for us. That will help us understand why you're still working towards that, and then if there's some themes that are coming through when we collect all of these. If we're seeing that you all collectively might want more information on something like developmentally appropriate activities, then that gives us an idea of what we can do in terms of providing webinar trainings and technical assistance. Then in this last column over here, if you check it yes, you can list any changes or improvements, if you have any, in any of these areas that you would like to make. So this is a chance for you to think about how can you build on what you're already doing really well, and has the facilitator had some ideas, or the person that's doing the observation had some ideas about how to even increase the quality from that good starting point. So jot those ideas down here if you have any for any of these topics or areas. And then if you're working towards that, if you check the working towards, you filled out the box here, this is the spot to tell us and to write for yourselves about the steps that you're going to take to fill this essential activity. So building on that example of developmentally appropriate activities for children, that maybe looking for additional materials for, say, you're missing some activities for toddlers in your group. So you're going to look for some materials and activities that would work well for toddlers. And if it's a matter of the facilitator wanting to learn more about what's appropriate for toddlers, of the facilitator getting some more training or doing some reading or whatever steps that person wants to take to get to that point. So those are some examples of how you fill it out. So these are this section is about the embedded practices. And then, let's see, then the next section is about what happens at a Kaleidoscope Play and Learn group. And these are really the essential activities that we really cover in the Play and Learn 101 training that you all have attended. So they should be really familiar. So that a group is meeting 90 minutes or more, there's open-ended child directed free play, group activity, all those things. So again, with the group observation and a conversation with the facilitator, are you meeting those? Are you incorporating all of those components into each of your groups, each of your group sessions? And then are there some that you are still kind of working towards? And one area that I think would be great to really focus in on for your observations and for your thinking is the intentional caregiver learning piece. I know that we get a lot of feedback from facilitators after they've taken the 101 training and they've started facilitating, and then even the ones that are attending the 101 training about the caregiver learning component. And I know this can be a challenging piece, one of the more challenging pieces of the program. So I would just like to have you do some special focus on this area when you're doing your observations and having conversations with each other about it. And again, if you're still working towards it, give us some reason why you are, and then any changes and improvements that you want to make. And I would say if you have any thoughts about how we can support you in any of these areas, even if you want to just highlight those on your form, go ahead and do that too, because we'll be collecting these forms from you. You'll be sending them in to us, one for each facilitator once a year. And what we'll be doing with them once we get them is just to glance through them and see for your specific groups if there are any areas where we can provide extra support, and then also knowing where you're doing really well. And then collectively, again, is sort of looking to see if there are trends. So if we're seeing that there are a lot of groups that are struggling with one piece of it, like, I don't know, intentional opportunities for developing caregiver leadership, then again, we can think about ways that we can really improve our support to you, so that you can improve your essential activity piece of this of the program. So we can do more training, we can do some technical assistance, we can beef up some components of the Kaleidoscope Plan Learn 101. And if you have suggestions, really direct suggestions about what would be useful on any of the areas that you're working towards, or even areas that you're just interested in improving in your groups, jot those down and make sure to highlight them or star them or email us those suggestions and those ideas, because I really do want this to be a process that isn't just about checking in on you. I mean, that's part of it, but it's a very small piece of it. It's more about how can we work together towards quality and support each other in doing that. So the next section on this is about planning and managing your Kaleidoscope Plan Learn groups. Again, before you go through this, you might want to go back and look at these sections in the Kaleidoscope Plan Learn guidelines. And then on the next page, is an area that you can fill out for additional notes, observations, and then a way to summarize. I think this would be great for both the person that's doing the observation and filling out the form and the facilitator to just sit down and think about, what do you think the strengths are of this particular group? What do you think you're really, really doing well? And then how are you going to be working towards, who's responsible for making those, taking those steps? And any other quality improvement goals, activities you have for the coming year. Fill those in. And you don't have to have a lot of information here, but use this as a tool for yourselves as well, and as well as for letting us know and communicating with us. Then the next section is a quality assurance log, and this is a piece, you can use this if you want to. We don't need to have you send it in, so we just need those first, I guess, 3 pages. But if you want to just keep track of, after you've filled out the quality self-assessment, what steps have you taken and what's the outcome? Are there any next steps? So if it's just a way of keeping a record of the steps that you've taken and the progress that you've made. But again, we don't need this information, and feel free to use this if it's helpful for you, or use some other way of tracking that. So questions about the quality self-assessment? Give you a few moments to just type in your questions if there are any. Yeah, there's a question. When is it due? So let's go ahead. So it'll be due once a year for each facilitator, and we're trying to get into the habit of a pattern of having you turn in the quality self-assessment forms with your surveys. So we can aim for that for this year, because I know this is a new thing for folks. But for this year, for 2016, you have any time now until September 30th. And if you want to turn in your survey forms before you complete that, that's fine. Just get us the quality self-assessment sometime before the end of September. And oh yeah, Tanya has a question too. Can you remind us when to submit it? So yeah, so September 30th is the date to make sure you get it in. And then going forward, we're thinking we can start the year as, for next year's quality self-assessment forms, you can fill them out anytime from this October until next October, or late September again. And you can keep them on hand and put them in the packet with the surveys, or if you want to just turn them in early to us when you complete them, that would be great. Yeah, so Cecilia is saying we have quite a few sites, so I'm glad to know that we have some months to complete them. Yeah, so please, don't feel like you need to rush out and do them right away, or just space them out over the course of the next several months, and want you to feel like you're doing it not just to get it done, but you're doing it in a way that's meaningful for for your organization as well, and for the facilitator. So yes, can you submit them electronically? Yes, yes you can. And in fact, the form is in Word, so you can just go ahead and fill them out either on a computer, or if you just want to handwrite them, that's fine too. You can scan and email them to us, or mail them or fax them, whatever works. Let's see. Okay, good question from Elise. If the facilitator is not taking 101 yet, should we wait until they finish the course? I would say yes. Why don't you wait until they finish the course? And for new facilitators, give them some time to really get down the routine of running a group before going in and doing the quality self-assessment. So if you have somebody that's starting relatively soon, wait until this fall to complete it. And then if you have somebody, say you have somebody that's starting in July this year, I would say just let us know that, and we probably should go ahead and wait until they have had a few months to really get into their groove before they do the self-assessment, and we can wait for them for next year. And a question about when's the next 101 training, and that is in June this year, 22nd and 23rd. Good questions, guys. So just for keep the questions and comments going here too, and I'll just run through your next steps is just to choose a person who will observe a group. That person comes into the group and completes the form either during or shortly after the group. You don't have to be in there with a clipboard in the form. Or if you just want to jot notes while you're observing the group, or that person's observing the group, that's fine. Sometimes I know it can be a little awkward in a play and learn setting for the families, as well as a facilitator too, to have somebody there with a clipboard and a pencil and looking down their nose and feeling like, people are being assessed somehow. If that doesn't fit the culture of your group, just, take some notes and observe as it feels comfortable for everybody. Then again, review together, observer and facilitator, what's going well, where improvements are needed, where you want to make improvements, and make a plan for those improvements and adjustments. And then go back periodically to the quality self-assessment and look and see where you're making progress. So we've got the when to complete. And then when to send them, I think we talked about that too, when you complete your surveys, or at least by September 30th. And then just, even if you have a facilitator that has multiple groups, you only need to complete this quality self-assessment once. Pick a group that's sort of a typical group for that person to facilitate. And then we'll need one for each of your facilitators. You're welcome if you want to do more. If you have a facilitator that has multiple groups and you want to observe and fill it out for all of those groups or some of them, you're welcome to do that. You're only required to do it for one group for each facilitator. So, any more questions about the process? So again, why we do it beyond because you have to. Really, we want you to notice what's going well and feel like you can celebrate those pieces of it and observe it, build on it, and really take a moment to really reflect and think about making the experience the best that it can be for the families that are coming. And then, feel free to use this as bragging rights too, like that you can let folks that are in charge of your programs or your funders know that you do go through a process to regularly evaluate your program, and this is part of it. And, pull out those success stories from it and talk about what you're doing really well too. So Oh, and Elise has a question too. How about if we have two facilitators per group? Do we need to fill out two for the same location? That's a good question. This is the way that it's structured to be that if most groups don't have two facilitators, they might have two people that are assisting. Maybe one is the lead facilitator, again, the one that's mostly kind of in charge of planning the group, and then there's somebody that's helping out. So I would go with the person that is most in charge. But if you have two people that are essentially working, as peers, um, maybe you could, that's a really great question. If they're doing the same group, you might observe them both in the same group, and that would make for a good conversation about how they're working together and what makes that partnership work for them, how they divide up the tasks, and where they feel each other is doing well and how they can support each other too. So I think that's a great question. Yeah, and a comment from Jean, who's with the Seattle Public Schools, and she said Rebecca, who's their coordinator, said she would be evaluating for the Northgate Library, where they have three facilitators, because it's a huge group. They need three facilitators, and she think it would still be good for the input. Yeah. Yeah, because there's a different dynamic there, and it's a nice opportunity to really sit down and have a conversation with each other, and a third or a fourth person to provide some feedback to each other, as well as get some feedback from somebody who's observing. Good questions. But yeah, and if you have any further questions like this, you can always contact me too, because each of your groups is so unique, and the circumstances around them are very unique too. We just really want this process to work for you, as well as for the collective of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn groups. So any more questions about quality self-assessment? And I believe, yeah, we've emailed the information out with all the information about the surveys too. But if you need forms or you need the instructions again, just contact us. Okay, we'll move on to the survey. There are no significant changes to the survey. In fact, there are no changes to the survey from last year. So, which I think is good news, because this form seems to be working really, really well. We've used this form for 2 years in a row so far, and it seems like it's been fairly easy for participants to complete and pretty straightforward. And we're getting fairly consistent results from it too when we're looking at the results and doing the analysis. So it looks like that piece of it is working really, really well from at least the user end of it, of the people that are filling out the form. So we have the form again in these 5 languages: English, Chinese, Somali, Spanish, and Vietnamese. If you are in desperate need for another language, let me know. We may have a little bit of funding where we can do a couple of additional translations. So we're happy to do that. If you've got a bunch of speakers of some different languages that you think it would be useful for them to complete the survey in. So do look for the 2016 at the bottom of the survey form. No worries if you accidentally get in some 2015 forms. They're exactly the same, but just in case. So the process is now until about April 22nd. Pick the 2-week period in May in which you're going to collect those surveys. Or make arrangements with me or Nathaniel. Yay, he's sitting, he's listening, he's waving. He's here with me in the office. He's going to be helping out with the surveys, as well as this other stuff that we're talking about. So you can collect the surveys at another time period as long as they're done by the end of September. But again, we're doing sort of the quote unquote official survey month of May. And if that month doesn't work best for your group, then pick another 2-week period to do them, and just let us know by April 22nd which 2 weeks you'll be doing them. So even if it's 2 weeks in July or something, let us know what your target 2 weeks are going to be. Then the official, again, the quote-unquote survey collection time is the month of May. And if you're doing your surveys during the month of May, it'd be great if you can get those completed forms to us by the middle of June. You can mail them, you can email them, or you can fax them to us. And then that way we can start our process of entering that data, and will be good for our timeline. So the last date to turn in surveys is October 14th. So just as long as we get them by October 14th, they'll be included in the big 2016 report and analysis. And then we should be able to get the individual reports back to you. So we'll have your groups or your organization's data set by the middle of January. If you need it sooner, let us know. We can usually download it out of SurveyMonkey, where we enter it into. We can get you some reports and data before then. And then the big written formal evaluation report that is inclusive of all groups across the state will be available sometime in early January as well. So there's a question about, do we ask the caregivers to actually do this? I have left out English ones. No one has responded. Yes, and we'll go through the process. And then is the survey only once a year? Yes, it's only once a year. So how and when to collect it? So you'll choose your 2-week period when you'll collect the surveys. And when you're choosing that 2-week period, think about when you're going to be able to get the most participants to participate. So think about, when you have high attendance months or weeks. Might not want to pick a week where it's like a holiday week or something like that. And then when your group is ready. So if you have a relatively new group or a new facilitator, you might want to wait for a while until that group has sort of gelled and it's got its rhythm down and all the components are working pretty well. So use those as criteria for picking your 2-week period. And then and choosing that is, think about a time when your participants can really focus too. So both in the 2-week period of time, but also during your group sessions. So if your group session has like a snack time, or if arrival is fairly slow time when participants can sit down and focus and fill out the forms, then you choose that time in which to pass them out. And have some supplies ready, the forms, pens. Sometimes, some groups like to have some extra staff, like volunteers, that are there to do an activity with the children while the participants fill out the forms. And then you can also bring a 2016 report, or actually it should be 2015 report to share with the participants so they can see what happens to the surveys, that it gives us this information. So helping the participants fill out the form, we do have a script and instructions for you to use. And I'll pull those up so you can see what they look like. And again, they should have gone out, oops, they should have gone out in that email as well. Oh, I don't have it loaded up right now, but there are instructions there and there is a script. And let me show you the form. So some tips for filling out the form. So during that 2-week period, again, choose a time during the group when you think it's going to be most convenient for people to be able to focus and fill this form out. and give them some instructions. Let them know that this is a voluntary form. They don't have to complete it to participate. We really encourage them to, and reassure them that this is not an evaluation of them or their child. This is evaluating the program. And it's a way for us to get feedback about whether or not the program is working for families. Again, I mean, sometimes I think participants can be fearful that they are the ones who are getting assessed, and it's no, we are really trying to track and know, is this program working for families? And it will help us improve, and the information that they supply will give us suggestions on what we can do to make it a better experience for them. And we also use the data to show policymakers and funders how and why this is an effective program. So the first 3 questions are a little bit of information about the people that are attending the group. So the first one has to do with the relationship of the person filling out the form to the child. So, and they can pick as many of these categories as they want. So if they're bringing their own child and a brother and a sister and a friend's child, they can pick all 3 of those. And then number 2 is a space for them to list the ages of the children they bring to the group in whole years, if possible. If not, don't worry, we'll figure it out. But, you know, so if they have 2-year-olds that they're bringing, they can write 2 down twice, or 2 children age 2. You know, if they're bringing a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old, they can just write 1, 3, 5, and that will do it. And then for number 3, this is asking the question about how many times have they gone to a play and learn group. And we know that there are people that are attending multiple groups in a week, and they can estimate about how many times they've attended all of those groups together and fill this section out. And that brings up the point too. So if a participant has already filled out a form in another group, they don't need to fill it out again. In fact, you can discourage them from filling it out, because we only need to collect 1 survey from each caregiver or parent that's coming. And then if they've only come a couple of times, either once or twice, then they can skip this next section 4. And then they have this opportunity to answer these questions. So based on what's happened since they, as a result of their participation in the Play and Learn group, how have these things changed for them? So again, it's based upon their participation, what they've learned at the group and what they've picked up from it. Do they feel like they understand about the same that children develop school readiness when they skills when they play, or have they learned a lot, or they understand a lot more or a little more, so they can gauge those and fill that out for themselves. And then there's a couple of spots for them to write some more narrative, more information notes. The first one is about what does the caregiver do differently, the caregiver or the parent do differently with the child in their care since participating. So this one is really focused around the caregiver or the parent. What do they do differently? And then number 6 is about what skills has the child gained because of their participation. So this one is more about the child. So I do notice once in a while is that it looks like the participants filling this out get a little confused about this. So this is caregiver focused, this is child focused. Then the bottom questions are just collecting some demographic information from participants. And this is about the adult. So the caregiver or parent that's filling this form out fills this out for themselves. And they can be identified, they can check as many ethnic, cultural identities, and then as they feel apply to them, and then the language they use most often by the adults in their home. They can make a choice among these languages or write in another one, or if they really feel that 2 or more languages are spoken equally at home, they can choose that too. And then family income, and then if the person filling out the form or the parent guardian of the child has been a member of the United States Armed Forces. So a couple tips about administering this form. If you have participants that need some assistance reading the form, or you're doing an oral translation of the form for somebody, then go ahead and just circle this piece at the bottom here, and that just gives us an idea of the number of forms that somebody needed some sort of assistance in completing the form. Feel free to answer questions people have about the questions or how to fill it out. Tell them to be as candid as they can be, that we really do want their honest feedback about it, and that I haven't heard of any facilitators getting fired or demoted or anything like that because of what was on their survey form. So I know that some folks might want to make sure they have a great relationship with you, and they want to make sure that you get some recognition for your work, but really encourage them to be very honest. And again, it's about assessing the program. It's not about assessing people. And yeah, that's the form. Let me see. Please write in your questions again. And I'm just reading some questions. Oops, I don't want to do that. Eyes are in 2 places at once. Oops, now I can't see your questions. So, oh great, Kay has an idea that she's used. She used a large manila envelope and had people sign the front when they put the survey in, so they knew it's anonymous, but I knew who had already filled it out. That's great. That's a great idea. And I think, again, for us, we don't need names. Please, if people put their names on there, feel free to scratch them out with a big Sharpie. We really don't need to or want to know the names. And we do the survey 2 weeks in a row in each group, so that in the second week you can catch the folks that weren't in attendance the first time around. So yes, they don't have to fill, please, they don't have to, and please don't have them fill them out the second week as well. So only need to fill out 1 survey at any group this year. Let's see, Mabel, should we do the translation of question number 5 and number 6 before we send to child care resources? So Mabel's with Chinese Information Service Center. You can if you want to, but we also can have them translated too once they come to us. But it's really helpful. Either way, whatever works best for you, we want to make it work for you first, and then we can do the translations. So again, offer help reading, answering questions. If they need help with translation, reassure them it's voluntary and it's confidential, and that we aren't tracking names on our end, and likely you won't be either. So, oh, Kay keeps saying she loves the photos. Okay, we'll see if I can get you some more here, Kay, coming up. So any more questions about the survey form and passing them out? And again, the instructions are on that email, and we'll be sending out those emails again just to make sure that everybody has all the forms. And there's, like I said, there's a script towards the end of it. You can read it, or, you know, just highlight the points that you feel like need to be made. So what to do next after you tell us what your 2 weeks are, when you're going to be doing the surveys, after you've had them filled out, then if you're mailing them to us, make a copy first just in case they get lost in the mail. We had that happen several years ago and it was a huge packet of surveys. So it was really sad that they got lost in the mail. So just do that just in case. You can scan them and send them over email or you can fax them in, whatever works best for you. And fill out a cover sheet. There should be a cover sheet in that email as well. And the cover sheet looks like this. And this is just simply so that we know where these forms came from. So your organization's name, um, the person to contact in case we have some questions about the survey. So sometimes there might be a page or two missing, or it looks like some of them got mixed up in a fax or something. Give us a name of somebody that we can contact. And then the dates that you passed out the surveys and the numbers that were completed and that you're sending to us. Again, just as a double check that we have all the surveys that you sent to us. And we can go back and look in the fax machine or wherever and make sure we got all the copies out of it. So this is probably pretty familiar for folks that have been around for a while and really haven't changed the process much. So let's see. I'm scanning the questions again. Feel free to keep asking questions or making comments if you had something you've done that has made the process go smoothly for you. That'd be great. And then what happens to it, we do the data entry here, Nathaniel will be doing that, and then we'll be having ORS Impact do the analysis, do the formal analysis, and they've been our evaluation partners since the very beginning, and they're very, very helpful. And they will produce the tables and the written report that will be available in early 2017. And then we will do the individual reports for your organization, available January 2017 as well. But again, if you need them sooner, let us know. We can get your surveys entered and we can get the data out rather quickly for you. And why do it? Again, you get the data back from your own groups, so you can compare and contrast how your groups are doing against the whole network of Kaleidoscope groups in the state of Washington. You can share your results, brag about them. It's a great way for caregivers and parents to give feedback about the program and for us to make improvements as we think we might. And then, having a bigger data set is more reliable. So if we get everybody to participate, and we had really great participation last year. We had almost 700 surveys completed last year, which was really great, really amazing. So the more we have and the better representation we have of all the groups and all the participants, then the better the data is coming out, the better, the more reliable those results are going to be, and it's more powerful when we tell that story to our funders about, yes, this is effective. So a question from Fran. Yes, Fran, you asked this question via email too, so I'm glad you asked it here. Is Kaleidoscope Play and Learn evidence-based, yes, or still a promising practice? So we are not evidence-based, according at least to the scale that's used by the University of Washington Evidence-Based Practice Institute that has given us the promising practice designation. And we have consciously made a decision not to pursue evidence-based because the type of structure and rigidity that would be required of a program to become evidence-based doesn't really fit the Kaleidoscope Play and Learn model. We believe that the flexibility that we have built into the model is partly, at least a big part of what makes it successful. So often for evidence-based practices, things have to be fairly consistent group to group. So it might be that you all would be needing to use the same lesson guides and using a lot of the same materials. And that sort of uniformity wouldn't work for Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. And we know that, and so we are saying no thank you to evidence-based. We feel like what we're doing in meeting promising practice and doing these quality assurance activities is really helping us to show that this program works. So, oh good, Fran says yes, she agrees. Yeah. So, and if you want more information about that, we do have an information piece on the evaluation that we have done to date, including the many different iterations of the survey, as well as the pilot project that we've done, and it includes a statement about why we're not pursuing evidence-based, at least as the way that most people defined evidence-based. Definitely we do have evidence, so we're evidence-informed, and we're built on the foundational research on child development and caregiver and parent support and group practices, all those kinds of things. And then we have our own evidence, just not big longitudinal studies. So good questions. So your next steps, choose the next 2 week, or choose your 2-week survey period and let Nathaniel know, and that will be get familiar with the form, the instructions, and the script if you want them, and then call or email Nathaniel or me if you have any questions. So, all right. Then, any other questions about the survey? We're going to move on now into the monthly attendance report. So if you're feeling like you're really familiar with this, you can sign off or keep on listening. So this is the report form that Nathaniel sends out to everybody in King County. We're trying to still get a uniform practice for at least collecting attendance for groups outside of King County in Washington. Haven't quite gotten there. But if you want to learn more about it and how we do it in King County, and you want to advocate for your child care aware organization to do it the same way, that would be awesome too. So we use the monthly attendance to track the number of people that are participating, and then we use unduplicated numbers. So let me pull up the form so you can see what it looks like. So, and unduplicated for us means that if somebody attended 3 times in a month, you only count them once. And so the form so the information that we need back from your groups each month is this. We need to know the number of family, friend, and neighbor caregivers that attended, the number of parents, and then for those that serve in both roles, you can tell us both. So these are the people that are bringing their own children as well as somebody else's child. And we have a lot of those folks that are attending Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. And then the number of children ages birth to 6 years. So, prior to a child starting kindergarten. And if there are some other people that are attending, fill that in the other column and let us know what you think their relationship is to the child, and then we'll kind of make our best guess if they fit in any of these categories. Then for each of these categories of people, you can tell us how many were new this month, how many were returning from a prior month, and then the total. So so this is for March, anybody that they first started attending in March, you would count them in this row here, in whatever category of person they fit into. And then if they came any previous month, it could be, even if they were on vacation for several months or something, had come previously to your group, count them as returning. And then the total number. So note any changes for your groups below here too, and this is for the directory. So if you had any changes at all to your group schedule or where it's meeting, um, put that information here. If you had a new group that started this month, put the information here, and then we'll make sure that we get it up on our directory online. And then any groups that stopped meeting, note that here, and and let us know if you think that that group is going to restart, and if so, approximately when that might happen, or if it's just done. If you ran out of funding or decided not to continue with that group, you can let us know there. And then any other changes to your group's meetings, days, times, locations, or if the group might be going on a few week break or something, you can put that information in here, and then we'll update all that to on the online directory. So questions about the form? Let's see, Rebecca is asking, can I tally all of our groups onto one attendance report or submit one form per group? You know, it works best for us if you tally them all together on one form. That's great. But for instance, if it's extra work for you, like it makes it onerous to be able to submit the forms, if you send them all to us, we'll figure out the math too. So whatever works best, but obviously our preference is to have it all compiled. But we are happy and able to be flexible on that. Okay. Yes, and Elise is also asking if we want to know the attendance of each location. And for us, we don't need to know the attendance for each location. We just need to know the attendance for each organization. And you might want to track by location. So yeah, track it however. And in terms of how you come up with the numbers on the form, how you track attendance, if you use sign-in sheets or the facilitator just is jotting down names and they are familiar with who's coming to the groups, you know, that they can just sort of make their own hand list. Whatever works for you for that is great for us. And we don't need and actually don't want the attendance lists from you because it has people's names and confidential information on it. We just need the total numbers at the end. And question about, is the form new? No, this is the same form that we've been using for a while. And at least it might be that you didn't have the opportunity yet to fill it out. So now you get a chance to do this. So any questions, suggestions, tips for other people? Go ahead and type them in. Let's see, Kay was saying, Kay in Mount Baker School, she had a comment. The new Department of Early Learning goal of 90% children ready for kindergarten by the year 2020 is measured by TS Gold, or AKA WA Kids. Our children are ready in 4 out of 6 areas, and she's looking for ways to track, the number of Kaleidoscope Play and Learn sessions attended with this success. So yay, Kay. So you're tying it to your school district's goals of school readiness. That's great. And I will be very curious to see what you find out. And then Kay also had a question. Do you see this for King County only? For the attendance reports, yes. But for you, you're sending attendance information either into the Whatcom Early Learning Alliance or Opportunity Council, and this is a great way for them to collect it because it gives you a way to track the attendance for different time frames and unduplicated attendance. Oh, and Fran is saying she'd love to do that too, Kay, tied to kindergarten ready. Can they ask if they attended a play group, and if so, which one? Yeah, I would work with your school district if you want to let them know that you are offering these groups and encourage them when they're doing their kindergarten registration, or if when the kindergarten teacher is sitting down for conferences, or if they're doing home visits as part of um, their transition, that they ask the question, what kind of activities, early learning activities, have you participated in with your child? For instance, story time at the library or play and learn groups. Great. Okay, saying they use an early learning survey at Mount Baker schools, and Kaleidoscope is one of the questions part of the registration packet. That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, because I think the more we can sort of share what's working within our own Kaleidoscope network, as well as with our community partners, if they're schools or other folks, I think that will really help us collaborate more around school readiness and school transition. Great. Oh, Kay is saying she can send the registration form to us, and that would be wonderful. That would be great, and I can send that out to everybody. And if you want to see the kinds of questions that they're asking and how they ask about Kaleidoscope participation, that would be great. Anybody else? Other questions, thoughts, apprehensions? Give you a moment. All right. Yes, thanks everybody. I'm really, thank you for hanging in there. And again, we recorded this and we'll load it up to YouTube. So if you have some coworkers that you think would benefit from watching all or part of it, then you can share it there. Or if you need a refresher too, feel free to watch it, and also, give us a call or send us an email, me or Nathaniel, and we're here to help you out. So thank you so much. I'll talk to everybody soon, I hope.